Right, next is to spawn in the enemies randomly. Okay, so let's add an event, and this will be a system event, and it will be every random seconds. So this is right at the bottom. Every random, what should we say, between 0.7 and 2 seconds, we are going to, and actually the player needs to be alive. There's no point spawning enemies if the player is dead. So we need is alive. Oh, that's a system condition. Is Boolean set is alive. Okay, so if the player is alive, we are now going to get the system to create an object, and it will be the enemy rotate object on the game object layer. And where, well, we're going to set a random position, so it's going to be random, let's say between 30 and 820. I can't remember our size. Let's just check the size of our layout. 480, 854. So we're going to random 30 and 4, say 70, and random 30 by 800, something like that. Done. That will spawn game objects. So you'll actually see them start spawning in now. There they come, all over. Okay. I'm just going to undo this mouse cursor because it's very hard to find the mouse to move the player. So there, we would have to spawn and avoid these spawning in enemies. Right, let's add in the next one, the horizontal enemy. So this is all going to be similar. So I'm actually going to just duplicate this. So I'm going to hold Control and pull down and release. And this time it's not going to be a rotate enemy. It's going to be a horizontal enemy. And the next one is going to be a vertical enemy. So I'm actually going to duplicate again and change this to vertical. So now we have our 3 different types of enemies all spawning in, and if you run it, you'll see they all spawn in. Now the horizontal and vertical enemies are meant to have sign behavior, horizontal and vertical sign behavior on them. So let's add that. The vertical one, I'm going to add the sign behavior, and we'll make it vertical. We can play with these effects later. The horizontal one, we need to add the sign behavior, and it will be horizontal, and it's already done. So now if we run it, we get some enemies moving about a bit. Right. Next step is the collectible, to spawn the collectibles. So it's actually very similar to what we've done for the enemies. So I'm actually going to duplicate this again, change this to collectible, because it will also be spawned in a random area, and the conditions are similar, except the collectibles perhaps should have a fixed time. They spawn every 2 seconds, not random, and that should be the collectibles spawning in. So let's have a look at that. There's one, should be another one. There's another one coming in. We should get another one soon. There we go. Okay, so we get collectibles coming in. That's what we got to grab. Now, when the enemies are created, so let's say enemies on created, we should set up their stats as they're made. Their opacity should be 0 because they've got to spawn. So we want to set their opacity to 0 when they spawn in. We want to wait a bit of time. So let's have a wait. Let's say 8 seconds. Let's see what that's like. And then they get killed. So after 8 seconds, they're destroyed. So that we don't flood the screen with enemies. It's going to be overwhelming. Right, so that's for the enemies. When the enemies are destroyed, we should give our little particle effect. So let's add enemies on destroy. We'll add our particle effect, which will be to spawn, for our enemies to spawn another object, which will be our enemy particle, and the layer is our game objects layer, and that will give the little explosion to them. So if we run this, you should see after 8 seconds, you should see enemies exploding. It's going to take a little bit of time. We should have made it a bit shorter, but you'll start to see them disappear. There we go. And we're going to have to change the particle effects, of course, but you can see that it's working. Right. Well, after they are destroyed, we now need to find out, how does the player die? Well, the player dies if they connect or collide with an enemy. So let's add an event, player on overlapping enemies or colliding. Either one will work. I tend to choose overlapping. So player is overlapping enemies, and the enemies have to be fully spawned in, so they can't be slightly opaque. They have to be fully spawned. So let's add a condition here that says that the enemy's opacity has to be greater than, well, has to be equal to 100. Well, we can say greater than equal to. Alright. So if the enemy is fully spawned in and you collide with it, then we're going to set is alive to false. So we're going to say system set value, or it's actually set boolean. Set boolean is alive to false. Okay, so if you collide with a fully spawned enemy, you die. Right, and then what happens when you die? Well, let's set all that up. So if we can't compare that, so we've got to say, okay, let's do this. Is alive, right? And let's toggle this one. So we invert it. So if you are not alive, so if is alive is false, that means you've died. Then we can turn everything off. So we'll set the vertical and horizontal enemies sign behavior to off. So horizontal, we can set enabled to disabled. We can do the same for the vertical enemy. We can set enabled to disabled. We can also wait 3 seconds again before doing anything. So we can system, we can wait 3 seconds. We can show a message like game over. We should destroy all the enemies, so we can say enemies destroy. We can destroy all the collectibles, so we can say collectibles destroy. Of course the player will already be destroyed, but we can destroy the player. And We can then wait another 3 seconds, and then we can restart the layout. Restart layout, and of course if we left one thing out, and that's that if the player is overlapping enemies, we should set is alive to false. Okay, now let's just sort out that particle effect that we had on our collectibles and our enemies. So let's just go back here and go to our particles here. So let's change the rate. We'll increase that a bit, 200. We can have it a preview here so you can see what it looks like. So the rate is 200 now. Let's make it go in all directions. So we've got 360 degrees. It's like a explosion. It's because it's an explosion, we don't want continuous, we want a one-shot explosion. And our speed here, we can slow this down a little bit, I suppose. Our size can be a little bit smaller. Our opacity is good. Maybe slow the grow rate. And we can randomize the speed a bit. Let's see what happens. Let's preview that. Yeah, and there we have a little explosion there. Okay, we can kind of copy those things for the other one. We can have our rate here at 150. Keep our preview so we can see what's happening. Spray cone all around. Speed here 150. Size, I think we made them very small, 5. Grow rate, make it -5. And our randomizer 50. Oh, that's the size randomizer. We want the speed randomizer. And there we got a little bit of a different kind of explosion there. We'll also make this a one-shot. So that now, if you play the game and you move and collect your collectibles, you get that very satisfying explosion when you grab them. Of course, we die if we hit anything. You can change the effects yourself. But really, this is a really nice idea for the foundation of a hyper-casual game. And you can take this idea and run with it. It's just a start. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope someone finds it useful. And please join me again next time. Thanks. Goodbye.